Hello and welcome everybody to our podcast. This is Welcome to Livingston, where we invite businesses in Livingston County to talk about what they're doing in the community. My name is Don Putkela.
And I'm Angela Putkela, and we're with the Putkela Group Real Estate Professionals.
Yes, and we are so excited about today's episode. Today we have with us Sheila Miles from Wildlife X Team of Southeast Michigan. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Kind of works well with that whole real estate side of things because,
sure does.
You know, protecting your home and all of that. I mean, critters are a way of life, unfortunately. And
absolutely. And it's your biggest investment, or it should be. So.
Yes. Yeah. So best to take care of it.
Absolutely.
100%.
Sheila is a great resource. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your business?
My husband and I started it about 5 years ago. I am a corporate accountant by trade. I was a controller for a large real estate development company out of metropolitan Detroit. And my husband was a regional manager for Five Below. We got tired, burnt out, wanted to do something different. Both of our kids had graduated from high school. The last one was finishing up with college, and decided we needed to do something for ourselves, not for somebody else. We're big critter people. And at the time, we had lived on a lake in Brighton, and a swan had gotten caught in someone's fencing and was badly injured. And my husband was just out of his mind. Like, who do we call? Who do we call? Now, mind you, we don't do that, but we would have been able to point you in the right direction. We did not get any help. Finally, he went and did it himself, and then just drove to Howell Nature Center and said, please just take it. Please, please, please just take it. Learned a lot since then. So that would have been 6 years ago, and he went on a quest. Well, how do we get into this business, and what do we do? So we knew there was a need. We had just sold a house previously in Brighton to find out that we had a large bat problem above us.
Oh, those colonies.
Yes,
Woo.
they are. And it's funny because we were on a first floor master and our kids were off at college. So nobody said anything about any noises. Now, mind you, bats don't make a lot of noise, but no one said anything. So we were just dumbfounded. I'm like, what? What? No. And then, of course, you know, the realtor helped in a great way. I don't even know who they used at that time because we were not interested. I should go back and look. Yeah. But, you know, came back with an estimate and we're like, oh, all right. You know, you do what you got to do. And that was the end of it. But I always will remember that because I'm like, wow, that was a big problem. So as we're looking at these things, I'm like, well, I know there's a market. So that checks off my accountant brain. At least we'll try to make some money.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't want to just do something for fun. And then the next thing that was most important to us was state regulations and understanding what they do with the animals. So
that's a great question.
We are probably one of the only in our business who 100% stay humane. So by that means that we will do everything in our power to not harm any of the animals that have taken up home in your home.
In your residence, right?
We'll just make sure that we get everything taken care of and that you don't have to worry about it anymore. And we also provide services that then you rarely know we were ever there. We don't do ugly cosmetic. We do very, professional carpentry work, done a lot of training. We have a lot of tradespeople in our business, but ultimately when looking, it was finding something that was humane. So we found a company out of Texas that was their model.
Got ya.
And contacted them, and next thing you know, we're
opening a franchise, right?
Opening a franchise.
Great.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And it's one of those things of homeowners don't think about having critters in their house.
No.
But once they know that they're there, then they have to find someone. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times they have no idea where to start.
No, because it's gotten much bigger. And that's probably with the housing market over the last couple of years, getting that the need, and when there's a need, there's always a market. And where there's a market, there's always somebody who wants to do business. It's gotten better. It's one of those trades, though, that a lot of people think it's easier than it is. So they come in and out in a year. So you'll see a lot of names pop up and disappear. So I do recommend highly to anyone, make sure you're doing business with someone who's been around for at least 3 years so that they can at least stand behind their warranty.
Right.
But it's a need. It's definitely a need. And it is. People don't. And most of the time people are shocked. Either one, that's what's up there.
Yeah.
Or two, how much is it going to be? And, we're not like crazy, hey, this is going to be a capital expenditure type thing, but it is costly to make sure that you return your investment to a proper state.
Right.
And a healthy state, that you're living in an environment that is also healthy for you. So that's, once people find out, not only do you know that someone's living above you or inside a wall, you also know that you're living with them.
Right.
And what they have.
Well, and a lot of times people don't even realize until at the time of the home sale.
Mm-hmm.
We have one interesting transaction that was like the biggest.
Oh my gosh. You want me to say a little?
Yeah.
So we had a house that we helped buyers purchase out in Fowlerville. It
Okay.
was a 1880 farmhouse.
Oh, yeah.
And a couple that was living there never went upstairs.
Okay.
Hadn't been upstairs in forever, right?
They lived there for 40 years.
40 years. So we get there and our inspector goes up there and he's upstairs and first he goes, "Do you hear that?" He could hear the bats. So then he went to move the cover to go with the attic and guano poured down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He said he estimated it was 15, 1,000 bats in the attic. And it was $27,000 worth of work.
Okay.
Because the rafters were all
Sure.
eaten up and everything else. But the interesting thing about it is I'm freaking out about it. I call up the agent on our side. She's freaking out about it. She calls me an hour later and says, "Well, I sat down and talked with them and the wife packed a bag and went to a hotel. They're going to pay to get it taken care of."
Which is interesting because once people know,
Yeah.
you're like, "What? I'm sorry, what?
And then
And in a Google world that we're in, what's the first thing you do? What happens when you have bats in your attic? And depending upon what avenue you go down and what rabbit hole you go down, it's interesting.
No,
what
we
you
got to
can
learn
find
all
out.
about breeding season and when you could do it and when you couldn't.
Yeah.
So that leads the question, how does the process work when someone calls you up and says, "I'm laying in my bed and I hear things above me"?
Okay. First, you'll get somebody who will answer the phone. We always have somebody answering the phone we always have a person answering the phone.
a real live
person, which often we get. We're like, "I'm sorry, wait, I'm taking off. I didn't realize
That's
a
fantastic.
person was going to answer the phone." I'm like, "Well, we're here." But the process is essentially you get set up with a free inspection. All of our inspections are free because we know and you have a problem. You don't need someone to come out. You don't need to pay someone to come out and tell you have a problem.
Yeah.
You need someone to come out and tell you how bad is your problem and what needs to be done. So we provide free inspections. We have trained inspectors. Our lead inspector has his degree in wildlife and fisheries from Lake Superior State. They will go out there and they'll do the initial inspection. And it is a thorough inspection from top to bottom. So you get up on the roofs and you check all of the crevices, all of the valleys, all of the seams, the ridge vent, all roofing venting, and you start to look for evidence. They're trained in that. Some evidence is obvious, but most people don't see it. You don't see your roof. I mean, in a lot of these houses, they're huge.
Right.
You're not up there. I mean, I don't go and look and say, "Hey, is that something up there?"
Yeah,
People don't
look.
And so they hear it. They say, "Well, it was loud." 9 times out of 10, it's not as big as you think, which is the good news. It's not a raccoon and 8 of its pals.
Right.
It's a squirrel or it's mice. And we determine that too by
Mm-hmm.
evidence. What kind of nest is up there? They're leftovers.
Right.
Everything is different. A mouse leaves a different
Calling card.
calling card than a bat. And they're both different, and these are things that people are trained on. They determine your problem. They determine what's the best way to remedy it. Now, depending upon the time of the year, and they'll go over that with you at the end of your inspection, and it's thorough, and it's got pictures, documentation from head to toe on what they found. A lot of times it's interesting depending upon the person. "Oh, I want to go up there and see it. All right. If you want to come up in the attic, come on up. Now, our inspectors are masked up and prepared. So depending upon how bad it is, they may say, you need to go get a mask on or not, because you don't want to disturb the guano and not breathe it in.
Right. And be dangerous.
It is very. That's essentially the process. Now, depending upon the animal, they'll ask, what time of day are you hearing it? So mice, bats are nocturnal. You're gonna hear that at night. Bats you don't hear unless the temperature's changing dramatically, and that's because it would either be that it had been cold and they're coming out of a torpor state, a hibernation state, to where they're like, wow, it's really warm. So we get this a lot in Michigan, where they'll say, I heard it yesterday, but I haven't heard it again, or I heard it 3 weeks ago, but I didn't hear it again until yesterday. And they're like, well, that doesn't make sense. We'll say, well, then that's probably bats, because 3 weeks ago we had a really warm day and they're underneath your insulation and they're doing kind of like moving around. So that's when you hear them scratch, 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 scratch. But they realize it's not time for them to come out because it's too early or it's not warm enough. And then they stop and they go back into their state.
Got you.
It's cold again. 3 weeks later, we get another warm day, a really warm day, because that's Michigan.
That's true.
It is. And they're like, no, a mouse at night will be consistent. That's when you start hearing that in the walls, just a little scratching. I heard it in the attic, then I heard it in the walls. If it's during the day, then it's likely squirrels.
Got you.
So you start with that. Like, so when are you hearing it? Okay, I'm hearing it during the day when I'm on a Zoom call. I'm constantly hearing this thing above my head.
Right. Now I know critters can get in through, mice and bats can get in through very small holes.
Correct.
So how often do you go out where you're looking at one problem and you find 4 different problems? Like you have multiple critters.
I would say at least 50% of the time. So at least, and that's always then the secondary is bats. People hear something and then find out that they have or had bats at some point in time.
Right.
It's definitely very common in the area.
It is. It is. This is the area we live in. This is, and everyone, if one of my favorite things to do is to sit out at night and watch them fly. They're cool. I'm like, hey, look at that one, until you're like, wait, where are they going?
Right.
Is that my house? Oh, no, it's the neighbors. Oh, we better send them a call. We better let them know you got bats. You want us to come out?
Right.
It's more common than not that people will call for when they have a raccoon, when someone has ripped off the gable vent. And that's not something they can ignore or just kind of write off. They hear that. And usually those people, we go out there and they have had bats.
Right.
Because the problem with the bats is in the mice is that if you don't address that and you leave that seam will only continue to grow.
Right.
With the temperatures change throughout the Michigan. So you add 1,
Right.
2, 3 winters, summers, and then you have another squirrel who starts gnawing or trying to get in. It's just normal wear and tear in Michigan's homes.
Right. So you go from bats to mice to squirrels to raccoons as
Correct.
the hole gets bigger.
Address it quickly, right?
Yes. It is the smartest thing to do is to address it as soon as you know.
Great. That makes sense. Now, do you have any advice to give homeowners in terms of keeping these animals out of their homes?
Absolutely. Always check your areas, check your seams. Call somebody right away if you do see any sort of droppings or nesting. Don't wait till you hear something. And again, everyone has a different level of tolerance. My mom laughs at me. I will freak out if I see a mouse. My mom's like, I grew up with them. I'm like, well, all right, whatever. That's your thing, not mine. I don't want it in my house. But always seal. Just do the pre-winter and the post-winter check on your house. Check your caulking. Check your seams. A lot of this stuff, you can do before it gets to be a problem. So if you start to see your soffits and there's a little bit of a gap, depending upon how handy you are too.
Right.
Some people just don't even want to do that. Give us a call. We offer the free inspections. We have a large amount of repeat clients who do that. We're just on their calendar now every fall.
come out and seal up whatever
every
new
fall or
stuff is
every
here.
spring.
An
Yep.
ounce of prevention is
Yep.
worth a pound of cure.
Yep, absolutely. So, they're like, and we'll point out things. So has that gotten worse? Like your dentist.
Yeah.
Let's watch this one. If you're not ready to take the plunge, you need a new ridge. Ridge venting is a huge problem. Tell somebody they need a new ridge. Ugh, I'm not ready for that. That's a costly one.
That can get expensive, right?
Very. I'm not ready. Okay. Well, everything else looks good. You tell me what you want to do. Okay. I'm good. Come back out. We come back out. Yeah, you definitely have had a lot of activity this winter or this, over. It's still just that, or there's other things now. What do you want to do?
Right.
We're there to service them.
Got you. Now, I know you said humane and such. Does that mean you don't use bait stations then?
It depends upon, so mice and rats, there's no other way but to manage them through population control.
Got you.
So we use snaps.
Okay.
We try to stay away from any sort of poison. But we really do like quick and easy. It's the most inhumane way to take care of them. Squirrels, bats, raccoons, possums. What we do is we provide an exclusion. So we are always like, listen, let's just give it a way to get out safely and seal everything else up, and then also take that away with the certain types of traps if the door closes when they leave, that they can't come back in.
Got you.
And then it will go and find its own new home. Raccoons tend to have 5 active dens. So odds are if they leave your attic, they've got 4 other to choose from. Just let them take them, especially if it's a mom or if it's a pregnant mom. Speaking of that, we follow their breeding seasons. So if it's a breeding season, we are very, conscientious of making sure that, especially the raccoons, that you don't want to trap and relocate because you don't know what you're taking it away from. And baby raccoons cannot live without their mom.
Right.
I mean, they're 6 months to a year before they're on their own. And that happens a lot. People hear the mom, I'm just going to go set up a trap. They do that, they relocate it, and then 4 days later, they're like, what is that squeaking upstairs?
It's the baby.
It's the babies. Okay, well, what are you going to do with these?
Yeah.
Right, got you.
That's when we're calling and pleading with Howl Nature. You remember us? We're your biggest donor.
And you mentioned Howell Nature Center before. I mean, I remember going out there with the field trips for our kids and such.
Oh.
They do an amazing job with bringing in animals that have been hurt or injured to, help them.
Yes. And they, like everyone else, especially this last season, with it getting warmer, raccoons had 2 breeding seasons in 2022 and 2023. So that's double.
Wow.
And they're not like bats where you can just exclude and let them just fly away. You're dealing with larger animals, and if you take away the mom, they're in trouble. But Howl Nature is by far one of the best rehabbers around. And they do. They work with you, but they'll fill up fast and they'll say no. We already took in 15 orphaned raccoons. We don't have any more room.
Wow. So another question I was going to ask, I know we talked about you hear noises or you see their droppings.
Correct.
What are other signs that people will have of like, hey, you may have problems in your house?
So for instance, we'll go back to my own personal story about the bats in the attic. Oddly enough, we're thinking about putting the house up for sale and we're like, well, or are we going to do some improvements? So we weighed the pros and cons. What are we looking for? One of the things we looked for is we were looking up at the chimney. And I'm like, we need to get the chimney repainted. It's wood. You can see where it's chipping up there. And Mike's like, yeah, I guess I can see that. Well, it wasn't chipping. It was an oil rub. So bats will leave oil rubs from in and out from where they're going in a normal place. If you see something like that, don't I'm like, oh, it's chipping. But again, it's a 40-foot ladder to get up to the top of that chimney.
Right.
I don't know.
People have those just sitting around.
No, not at all. But if you see things like that, mice are the same. Mice, if there's recurring spaces that you see, they will leave oil rubs from their bodies.
Okay, got you. That's good to know. I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah.
Because in the business that we're in, again, the biggest thing we see are bats.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But then there's always the mouse problem, and you'll see, there's people that just have traps out in perpetuity, right?
Right.
So.
And we do get a lot of those clients that then, we just got one out in Bloomfield, lives in this beautiful 6,000 square foot home, and has been working with someone to manage the population control of the mice that come into this house. And she's had it. She's like, I need someone to seal this up. And that's where we come in.
Right.
Like, okay, let's show you how all the areas that they're coming in, instead of you just trying to have this nonstop combat.
Yeah. Now, we had noticed on your website that you had said something about no domestic animal calls.
Correct.
Yeah. So what does that mean exactly? Yes.
So surprisingly enough, one of the first calls you get when you get in this business is people looking for animal control.
Oh, interesting.
I saw a stray dog. Can you come pick it up? This is an animal control.
Yeah.
Let me lead you to the person. So we, like everyone else in our business, had to try to stop it, because we would get these emergency calls like in the middle of the night. There's a dog that just got hit down the street, or there's a cat that's up in a tree. And I'm like, okay, no, that's it. That's the domestic animals. We had somebody call the other day who their cat somehow got stuck in their attic. They wanted us to come get it out. I'm like, I don't know how to get your cat out of the attic.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know how to get my own cat out of the attic. Right. So that's where it is. We're not licensed. Our permit with the state, purely nuisance. If we tried to intervene with any sort of domestic animal, we've crossed over into another license and we could lose our permit.
Gotcha. That makes sense. No, we weren't sure what that meant, if that was like, in terms of stray cats. Like, come get these stray cats.
Stray cats are really difficult because, like, in certain areas where you have barn cats, I live out in Howell. We live across the street from a large farm. And, he has barn cats.
Yeah.
They roam, but they're still someone's animal. Now, those are the ones in the areas you'll get a call and they'll be like, I have a stray cat. Well, a stray cat's a stray cat to you, but maybe not to him. So right. If I catch that and release it 20 miles away from here, he's going to be like, hey, where's Josie? What happened to Joe?
Right.
It's someone's animal. So you just try to stay away from cats and dogs as much as possible. You get someone, you get my husband on a good day and he's like, where are they? I'll go help that stray dog. And I'm like, of course you will.
Right. Yeah, well, one barn cat becomes 20 barn cats rather quickly.
Yes. Yeah, we had the farmer across the street said, hey, I just had 2 litters. Anyone want some free kittens? And I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Goodness. And it's funny because in the real estate transaction, we had a seller we represented, and there was a barn cat that kind of came around. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, the buyer did not want that.
Right.
So asked for it to be removed. Well, come the day of closing, the cat came back, couldn't stay away. And the buyer was so upset over it that they put a bounty on the poor cat's head that,
basically
there was money kept from the seller.
Till they could cage it.
Okay.
Once, not kill it, cage it.
Cage it.
Yeah, but make sure that it is not here any longer.
Right.
And then he can get his money. But, until that, I was like, wow, there's, all the interesting things that happen.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of interesting things that come up in real estate transactions.
So what's some of the most interesting animals that you've had people get into their houses?
Oh, I don't even know anymore. In their house, the most prevalent are bats.
Right.
But, we had a lot of raccoons last year. A lot of raccoons and their families. We just dealt, but unusual, I would say, would be certain snakes.
Wow.
We don't deal with snakes.
And you wouldn't think about snakes in Michigan.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why that's unusual. We had, and I couldn't even tell you, I probably should remember, but I mean, our one inspector was in awe because he's like, you never see these here. And he's like, I'm like, all right, but get out of there, would you?
Yes. No, yeah, no. And that to domestic animals, snakes are domestic as well, because we had a kid birthday party. Gosh, 15 years ago now?
Oh, it's been a long time.
So the mom comes up to me during the party And she goes, shh, don't tell anybody. Bruce got out and we don't know where Bruce is. Well, yeah, no, they had like a 10-foot boa.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so it was, and they got it back like 4 days later. It had gotten into the vents. But you got little kids running all over the house. You know? So in those things, don't call you.
No. And typically why we, we don't deal with snakes because a lot of them are outdoor. And again, what are we going to do about it?
Right. Yeah.
They're not going to hurt you. There aren't a whole lot of poisonous snakes in the state of Michigan, and we're not necessarily in an area where you're going to find one. Odds are, like the one that was up in someone's attic, he had just moved in, and it probably was left over from someone else. And they said, I can't find it. Oh, well, let's get out of here.
Yeah.
Right. Got ya.
Those things happen.
So I know we were talking about some of these companies that come in and then they disappear a year later and such. What kind of warranty do you guys give on your work?
We provide a 1-year warranty on the actual work.
Okay.
I would say all of our repairs, even bat repairs, have sustained 3 to 5 years. We've gone back, If for some reason, even we have honored warranties that if something happens and, you call us back on 13, 18 months even, and it's our work and it didn't hold up, then we'll fix it. But it's a standard 1-year warranty.
Got you.
Most people, we haven't, well, I shouldn't say we haven't been in business long enough. We just haven't gotten to, there's a lot of companies that offer the 5-year warranty and they only do that, which is fair. I wouldn't either. If you agree to do the entire house exactly like they say.
Interesting.
We typically don't quote that. We'll quote you preventative, but we're going to try to take care of your current problem. And if we see something, we'll let you know. The ones that have a 5-year warranty typically you've got to go with option C, and that is
the expensive one.
Yeah. Right. You're doing everything.
You're doing everything, whether it's a problem right now or not.
Got you.
Yeah.
Got you.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And also, I was on your site. I saw that you offer some other services as well.
Yes, we do installation. We're licensed in the state of Michigan. So we started doing that basically because we wanted to be able to remediate attics the right way. You don't want to, if it's a bad problem, you don't want to just spray, disinfect, clean it up. A lot of people don't understand. They'll know now that when the attics are in their torpor or hibernation state, they're underneath your insulation. So you don't see at least 30% of what they've left behind at a superficial inspection. Now, depending upon, that's when we are like, if it's that bad, then you've got a serious problem and you need to get it all pulled out. So in offering the service to stay in that same field, we were like, well, we can do it. So we're fully functional. We've never branched off into it. We also can do gutters. Again, my husband prefers to stay in our lane, which is fair.
Right.
Yeah. And, but there are other things that we're licensed in the state of Michigan. And we also have the branding to do it. Our franchisor out in Texas, he'll siding.
Oh, goodness.
He'll build fences. And I'm like, all right. And again, though, I'm like, well, the restrictions in Texas are a little bit different here.
Right.
It takes us a little while to get a builder's license, and we can't, and then it's, what do you want to do? Installation was definitely the first one that we were like, let's get the right license to be able to do it.
Well, I can completely understand that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of times when you have those problems in the attic, you just can't go up there with a shop vac and vacuum up the guano.
Right. You can't, like the one that you were talking about. That's a complete rehab.
Right. And people out there that are doing that and are taking care of themselves, remember that is a toxic substance. Mm-hmm. So please don't be doing that yourself. Call a professional.
Thank you. Because it's so funny. We're like, it's not a scare method. It's just really the truth. I'm not trying to scare anyone. I just want you to be aware of it. Just like also with rabies. If you see one in your house, call someone. Just call someone. Odds are it found its way serendipitously through a vent. That means they're up in your attic. But, we like rabies. They had 3 active, Livingston County had 3 active rabies situations last year from bats.
Wow.
And they say that you don't even know.
Yeah, you don't want to mess around with that.
No, and you don't
No.
know. You don't
Doesn't make
necessarily know
sense.
if you've got bitten.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Right.
unfortunately, that as well. But yes, you don't want to go clean up any guano.
No. I mean, remember, they're more afraid of you than you are of them. So just call a professional.
Yep.
Nothing's going to change between today and when they come out in a few days later.
That's
They've
right.
probably been there for months anyway.
That's right.
And as a homeowner, though, and I think that's been the interesting part of some of the first-time home buyers, they don't realize the things that can come up.
No.
And you just take care of your home and you do the best you can.
Right.
But sometimes things happen, and that's why there's professionals to call.
Right. Absolutely. Another area you can take care of is out in your lawn. If you start to see things, like burrowing, things like that from groundhogs, you can just fill the hole or try, you don't necessarily have to trap them. But if you start to see evidence outside, that means that at some point they're going to try and get inside. If you're seeing, a perfect example would be my son, who bought a house in Royal Oak, new homeowner 3 years ago, and got a notification from Royal Oak that he had to remove some of this brush in his backyard because there had been an increase in rats around his neighbor's home. Rats are rats, and they were here way before we were, and they, in certain areas they're prevalent. So this was around COVID, where now they're food sources. The restaurant's closed, and oh my goodness, he's like, what the heck? Immediately, I'm like, all right, come on. We go out there and, all right, we got to seal up your area around your shed. You got to seal up around your deck. These are the areas that they'll go under and eventually start to burrow into your basement. You don't want that.
Right.
You don't want them to ruin your foundation. Let's just do these things now. Those are the type of things that if you see something around your deck is starting to be chewed on, you've got something living under there.
Right.
Makes sense.
It does. And they're critters. They don't mean to cause damage, but they got to find someplace to live.
No, and one of the things we see all the time are air conditioners.
Yes.
That people will put a tarp over their air conditioner and they'll seal it all up and they think they're doing a good thing. And then the mice get in there and it's their winter home and they eat up all the wiring and everything. So we tell our homeowners all the time, you can put a board on top of it, but please don't be that person that,
makes a nice cozy home.
Yeah.
Hot tubs.
Hot tubs, same thing. Yeah.
Hot tubs. Oh yeah. Come spring, we get a ton of people. Campers.
Wow.
I just went and opened up my camper, and oh boy, you guys, do you have someone to come out and clean this up? Because I'm not doing it. Yes, we do.
Wow.
Honest to goodness. So depending on what time you're listening to this, those are things to watch for. And you're probably going to want to know more in terms of how to contact Sheila and Wildlife X.
Yeah. So if someone has an issue,
yes,
how do they get a hold of you?
810-534-7355.
Wonderful. And then website as well, right?
Website as well, wildlifexteamsoutheastmichigan.com. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. Google my business.
Yep. And you guys are local right here to Livingston County in Brighton, right?
In Brighton, right there in Rickett Street.
Excellent. How far out will you go?
We will comfortably go during a busy season up to as north as Fenton, Linden, as west as Fowlerville, as south as Saline, and as east as Royal Oak.
Okay, great. That's a big, wide.
It is a big wide
swath. And
Yep. And that's, even in mentioning the area, that's what's amazing about Livingston County. We are a half hour from so many different hubs.
Yes, absolutely. Nothing against the other counties, but we do like to stay in Livingston County. We love Livingston County. So we really do focus mostly on Brighton, Howell, this particular area. But I shouldn't say mostly. We take care of everybody everywhere.
Yeah. It's kind of your home base.
It is.
That makes sense.
It makes, we've been here, so we like to stay here.
Yeah. And again, this is one of those businesses that work a lot through referral, word of mouth.
Absolutely.
They see your truck in the neighborhood. The neighbor said, I had this problem last year. This is who I used.
Absolutely. Like I said, so we follow our marketing and we follow, all of our returns on our marketing. Month over month, 50% of our business is repeat or referral. So, we love our customers. We do what we can. Absolutely. We're 100% a customer service. That was the biggest thing in looking for something to do. we needed a purpose, but ultimately it was always about providing a service, something to service to somebody and feel good about that we know that we're solving a problem.
Perfect.
That's great. Now, is there anything else that you wanted to make sure that we covered that we didn't touch on yet?
No.
Cool. Yeah, I feel like we've definitely, it's been robust. We've learned a lot.
Yeah. It's fun. It's fun. I remember, it's just an education.
Yeah.
And who would have known? I mean, people say that to me all the time. Who would have known you could talk about bats for so long? I'm like, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot to say.
There is a ton to say.
Yeah.
For all of you out there, if I remember, August is breeding season, right?
So technically July 15th.
July 15th.
July 15th is when the DNR says put a hold on it. And then last year it ended sooner, so it was about the third week in August. But typically we say July 15th to the end of August to be safe.
Right.
We have a philosophy that we can do 95% of your work. As long as we don't put up a valve and leave one space open, then they will always have a place to go in and out.
Got you. Perfect.
So don't wait.
Right.
Good.
Yeah, get it done beforehand.
Get it done.
Yes.
Don't wait. And again, in winter now, don't wait just because they're hibernating.
Right. Yeah, they'll leave when the weather gets warm.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
So, no, thank you so much for coming today. We have learned so much.
Thank you.
All of you out there, if you have any issues, you're hearing those critters in your attic, or you just want to get your house checked out to make sure it's all sealed up, to make sure that those critters don't find a home to get in there, please reach out to Wildlife X Team of Southeast Michigan. You can find their posts in the show notes of how to contact them. Check us out on Facebook, on our Welcome to Livingston.com website, and everywhere that you find podcasts.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Cut our episodes and all that. So, and in the meantime,
Welcome to Livingston.